Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video, I'm going to be building in the world of what I'm assuming to be the world of Magnolia Promenade, which is the world that we got from the Get to Work expansion pack, and I'm going to be building a police station. So I'm assuming that this is the world of Magnolia Promenade because with the Get to Work expansion pack, we've got the ability, we kind of got like the introduction to the Sims 4 of active careers, which means when your Sims go to work, with certain careers, not all of them, but you can travel to work with them and then kind of like go throughout their day-to-day business. So say if you wanted your Sim to be a detective, you can go to the police station, which, you know, that's what I'm building right now, or you get your Sim to go to the hospital, or even the science lab. With all the different lots that are kind of like tied to the individual careers, it's not necessarily somewhere that you can go to in the world map. So say for example, you can't go to the world of, I don't know, Brinton Bay, and there'd be like a workplace and you click like go to work. It doesn't really work like that. It's kind of like these little hidden lots, kind of like hidden away in the game, which you necessarily won't go to unless you're in them careers, if that makes any sense. But I'm assuming that this is the world of Magnolia Promenade just because that is the world that we got with the expansion pack. It's kind of got like a similar landscape and it looks like it could fit in, but to be honest, this could be like an extension of Willow Creek or Newcrest or one of them kind of like suburban worlds. But either way, this week I thought it'd be really fun to sit down and try and build a police station. Now, I have never built a police station before, and it's been something that has been on my to-do list for honestly quite a long time now. I've been playing in the standard police station that we got with the expansion that the Sims team built this whole entire time. Like I've never even attempted to build a new police station, but this week I just fancied giving it a go, and I'm so happy and really proud of the way this build turned out. So yeah, I hope you guys like it. But anyway, getting on and actually talking about the police station itself. So you can see that I've already built like the whole main structure for the building. Now I do want to mention, and I like to mention this every so often, but I did pre-plan this build. So this whole entire build took me a total of 3 days. I spent, well, actually no, like 3.5 days, because I spent a day and a half planning the build, so how it's going to look structurally in terms of, I spent about half a day just figuring out the floor plan for the inside of this building, because when I was building it, I wanted it to look nice from the outside, of course, but I also wanted it to be really easy for gameplay, because I feel like part of the reason why I haven't built a police station up until this point, the one that the Sims team gave us with the expansion pack, it wasn't actually that bad. Like, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I found it personally quite easy for gameplay. Alright, the decoration choices weren't my cup of tea, but it wasn't that bad, and so I wanted to build something that was just as easy for gameplay. And so when it actually came around to planning this build, I spent so much time on the floor plan because I wanted everything to kind of be in like arm's reach. So I didn't necessarily want to have like a massive building there be like multiple levels, because in the initial police station that we got with the expansion pack, everything was kind of like on the main floor, everything that you needed in like your day-to-day gameplay. And then there was like external things, like if your Sims wanted to pop onto the treadmill and they want you to work out, increase their fitness skill, or if they want to go and sit in the staff room, them kind of things that aren't necessarily needed for gameplay but they're kind of like an optional thing. I wanted them to be a little bit separate from like the day-to-day business, if you put it that way. So you can see that I'm going around and doing the floor plan, and pretty much the way that I did it is you come in and on the right hand side it's kind of like the office area. So it's where your Sims would go and sit at their desk. If they wanted to go and speak to like the chief of police, they've kind of got like a little separate office within that office, and then there is also some toilets next to the offices. There is also this little chemistry science lab, and then on the opposite side, I was referring to it in my head as kind of like the naughty corner, because that is the area where I place down like the prison cells, the interrogation room. We've also got like a little holding cell. We've also got another room which is opposite the interrogation room, which is kind of like a viewing room. So in the room itself there's this one-way mirror which Sims on one side can see in, but then the other side it looks like a mirror, so then Sims can like go and watch them and, you know, like maybe like write down notes and like, you know, all the detective bits and pieces basically goes into it. But that's kind of like on the opposite side. Now when I was initially building this, I felt so backwards because where the Get to Work expansion pack has been out for so many years now, and I've been playing in the exact same original police station, it felt a bit backwards because pretty much when you go into the original police station, you basically have it all on the opposite side. So normally when you go in, you have the naughty corner is normally on the right hand side, and then like the offices on the left hand side, and I felt really backwards building it the opposite way around, but it was just how it worked out for like the initial outside. Because the kind of like difficult thing that I found is, okay, well, I want there to be this naughty corner. I want there to be this kind of like dark section to the build where you've got the prison cells, you've got the holding cells, you've got all of these bits and pieces, but I feel like they can't have windows. And so it was just the way the floor plan worked out. But then also on the upstairs level, there ends up being a really big staff room. There's like a coffee machine, a microwave. There's a few different vending machines, both in that room, and then also kind of like plotted around the whole entire build. So, you know, both you and Sims that visit here can go and like get a coffee and like bits and pieces like that. But then there is also kind of like a evidence room, I'm going to term it as. It's basically like an extra room. I didn't know what to do with it initially, and then I came up with the idea of, well, I feel like in every single like police film or TV show, which when I was building this, I was really thinking back to like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember there was this one episode where they spent a lot of time in like this like evidence room, and so I decided that I'd have like a little evidence room upstairs as well. It's not like essential to a police station. The previous one didn't have one, but it was just like an empty space, and I already had so many different bathrooms around the building that I felt like it would be a bit repetitive of having so many different toilets, because like I mentioned, there is toilets right downstairs by kind of like the office area. There is also another toilet by like the prison cells for maybe you're the officer that is like tending to that area. There is still a toilet over in that section, and then on the upstairs area there is an extra 2 bathrooms. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make it into like an evidence room, maybe like a filing room if you will, but I tried to place down things that I feel like might have been confiscated or might have been used in a crime, and so they were kind of like sitting in this little evidence room among like all these different boxes and case files and stuff. And then also on the upstairs level there ends up being a conference room, which again, it's not essential to gameplay. The previous like police station didn't have one, but I just thought it'd be fun to have like an extra little space. It does kind of double up to be not like an office, because the main office is downstairs, but I did place down some laptops in there, so if your Sims maybe are like a little bit unsociable on one particular day, they can go upstairs and they can deal with all their different like cases separately to one another. Because when I was playtesting this build, which I have playtested this build, but I'll talk about the playtesting in a second, but when I playtested this build, I found that maybe like 1 or 2 Sims might pop up upstairs separate to the rest of the office area. But then as well as that on the upstairs, I think I ended up adding a massive gym, which I can't believe there was a massive gym. It's huge. It's got like 4 or 5 treadmills in it. It's got loads of different like fitness equipment, boxing bags. I think I also placed down some like benches and lockers in there. And then there is also a little shower room. But that is pretty much what is on the inside. It was so much fun, honestly. I've never built anything like this. It was just so fun to play around with all these different items and all these different decorations that in like my every day-to-day building I always see in the menu. But I mean, how many times can I place down like filing cabinets and case files and literal like debug menu items of fingerprints and all these different bits and pieces into my regular build? I got to use so many different items in this build that I've never used before, and it was just, yeah, I had so much fun doing it. So I really hope you like it. But yeah, that was pretty much what's on the inside of the build. Now, like I just briefly mentioned, I have playtested this build. Like always, if you watch me regularly, you know this. I playtest every single one of my builds before I put it onto the gallery to make sure it's 100% usable. You won't run into any problems. I playtested a full Sims week in this build because I was adamant to make sure that there was absolutely no gameplay issues whatsoever. Because something that I find is I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit apprehensive, if that's the right word, to do these kind of community lots or these kind of like special venues, because where your Sims work performance is kind of like reflected upon what's on the inside, it can be a little bit daunting to make sure that you've correctly placed down every single item that your Sim needs in terms of when they're dealing with like criminals or when they're just dealing with like police work. There's got to be like certain objects in the lot. So I play tested a week in this build, and yeah, I didn't run into any problems in terms of I didn't miss anything. I didn't run into any like performance issues. It all worked in my game absolutely fine. Like 100% works. There is enough computers, there is enough like chemistry lab things. I can't remember what they're called. I think they're called like a chemical analyzer off memory, but I placed down a bunch of them to make sure that I had completely covered all of the needs for all the different Sims, because there's your Sim playing in this build, so you know your Sim will come to work here, they'll go to their 9 to 5 here, and there's other Sims as well that's going to be interacting with the object. So I play tested a full week. I made sure that everything works absolutely fine. I run into like 1 or 2 little problems, but they weren't even major problems. The problems that I ran into were just a case of I might have placed down like a chair a little bit too close to a filing cabinet, and you know I had to scoot it over a little bit and then it worked. But yeah, if you want to download this build, please be assured that I have playtested it very thoroughly. I had so much fun as well, by the way, when I was playtesting this, because I haven't sat down and played with the detective career in a little while. It hasn't been too long, but I more so now go towards like the hospital career. I recently was trying to get my sim to reach level 10 of the hospital career, which is kind of like another career that came with the Get to Work expansion pack, and I kind of left the detective to the side. So maybe now I've built this police station, I'll return back to getting my sim to be a little detective, because yeah, playtesting this and going through like a Sims week playtesting it was a lot of fun. But I will also be redoing the hospital at one point and the science lab. I don't even think I've mentioned it, but this build will be in my save file, because if you are completely unaware, I am currently in the process of building a save file. So eventually I'll be releasing a save with every single lot rebuilt from scratch, loads of different new townies and backstories and stuff. I will eventually be releasing that, and I often get questions on when it's coming out. I honestly, I can't give you a time frame, because I've spent so long doing my save file, and in terms of like thinking about all the different builds that I want there to be in my lot. I want to cover all the different bases. I want there to be so much going on in my save file. It is such a big project, and even though I only might do like a video a week on my save file, I spend so much time like off camera doing it, the backstories, creating the sims, creating all the different little bits and pieces, which you won't see me do in a speed build, but will be included in my save file. So I'm not sure when it's going to be coming out. I am thinking, and let me know what you think I should do. I'm now debating the fact of, do I release a save file that's not 100% complete, but it might be like semi-complete, so like a good portion is done, because I really want to get it out. And I literally get questions pretty much every single day about when my save file is coming out, and I don't want to rush it, because it's such a big project, and I'm so proud of the way it's coming along and how it is already. I just don't want to rush it just to get it out. Do you know what I mean? So I'm thinking about maybe doing a bit of a early release and kind of having like a first version of my save. But yeah, let me know, because I'm more than happy to do like a first version of the save. I don't think that version will be out for a little while yet. I don't want to give you a time frame, because the thing is, I don't want to say, right, it might come out at this time, like I'm going to give you a date and a month and a week and stuff. I don't want to say that and then put so much pressure on myself. But if you want me to do like a first version, yeah, I'll be more than happy to do that. But also, I do want to mention, by the way, all of my builds that are in my save file, they're already on the gallery as well. So if you want to, you can just go onto my gallery and download them all and then plop them into the world and kind of like build it up as we go along, if you get what I mean. But yeah, every single one of my speed builds, every single one of the things I build on YouTube, you can download and you can play with in your game. So yeah, anyway, getting back to it. Sorry, that was a complete tangent, wasn't it? Like, I really just went completely off subject there. But I also felt like I needed to give you a little bit of a save file progress update, and that was kind of like my... Well, it wasn't really an update, was it? But that was kind of like a question to you, like, should I do that or should I not? Which, again, please do let me know, because I still don't know if you'd want to see me do that or not. But anyway, besides the point, getting back to actually what I'm doing right now, and actually getting back to the police station, which is currently what I'm building. So as you can see, I pretty much finished the whole entire exterior. I basically placed down like a load of different benches, loads of different bins. I just basically tried to make it blend in with the rest of the world, and it was quite difficult, because I felt like I was being really repetitive, because around the whole entire lot there is so many different benches and bins. But then realistically, in real life, if you go to somewhere like this, I feel like there would be a lot of them kind of things. But you can see that I've now moved on into the inside. I started off with kind of like the reception to the police station. I honestly did not realise how much fun I would have just decorating kind of like a receptionist desk, because again, going back to in this build, I use so many different bits and bobs and just so many different clutter pieces that I see all the time in the normal like decorations menu, but I've never pulled them out. I've never put like a case file or a fingerprint sample into a house before, because I feel like that might be a bit strange. But for the police station, it was so much fun, and decorating kind of like the initial like reception room when you're seeing walking through the front door, it was kind of like my first time getting to play around with all these different like little bits and pieces of clutter. And so I went to town with the cluttering up, in terms of there is so many different like knickknacks and so many different like little bits and pieces, like loads of individual placed pens and pencils and little scraps of paper and stuff. One thing that I did is I was trying to think back to, okay, well, I've never personally been inside of a police station, but I've seen loads of different police stations in like TV shows and in films and stuff. And oftentimes I feel like there's something at our front desk where people will sign. I haven't got a clue what it is. It's probably like a log of like who comes into the building or something. But I tried to make it look like there was one of them like outside the receptionist desk. So what I did is I got some debug pieces of paper, and then next to it I found this little mug that we got from the Everyday Clutter Kit, and I basically placed down the mug, found some debug pens and pencils, and then rotated them so it looks like they've actually been sitting in the mug. And it's just kind of like it's a small detail, but it was just so much fun because them kind of things I don't do in like family homes, and oftentimes you don't really have the opportunity to do that in normal community lots anyway, because there's nowhere in like a restaurant or in like a karaoke bar that you would have that kind of thing. But again, with this build, it was just so refreshing because I just got to use all these clutter pieces, all these just bits and bobs that I don't normally use, and it was just, yeah, I honestly did not realise how much fun I would have just decorating like a little reception area. But off the reception area, there's kind of like a little waiting room. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure in the original police station, there was no like waiting room area. It was more so your Sims would walk in through the front door and there'll be like a few armchairs. That is kind of like the case in this one as well. Like there is a few armchairs as your Sims would walk in through the reception, but then just off the side, I imagined it to be kind of like a little waiting room. Like I was picturing the scenario of, okay, maybe your sim wants to go to the police station, maybe they've got some info on like a certain thing that's gone down in their neighbourhood, they want to go and report it, they maybe come into the little reception bit, they sign in on that little bit of paper at the front desk, and then maybe they go into the waiting room, there's like a vending machine in there's a few different sofas and armchairs, and maybe they wait to then be seen by like a detective or something. I did also place down a little coffee station in there, which in the build I was so like happy with this idea, and I was so proud of this little thing because I feel like in police stations, in films and TV shows, they just drink so much coffee, and so I wanted there to be like a little, at least like a water cooler or something in the waiting room. But unfortunately we don't really have anything like that. I could have placed down them like drinks trays. We've got one from the backyard stuff pack, and I think we've also got one from, I think it's Spa Day as well, but it did not match like the police station whatsoever. That's more so like your back garden kind of decoration. And so I thought, I'm going to place down this little coffee station. I placed down these two little tins next to it to make it look like maybe coffee and then sugar. I also then found this little spoon in the Eco Lifestyle debug menu, sized that down to make it look like a stirrer, and then I placed down the coffee machine itself onto a counter and then kind of like merged it into the table. I was so happy with this idea. Unfortunately, when I came around to playtesting though, I realised that it deleted it, and I also placed it down kind of like outside the interrogation room. Same thing, it deleted it, so I'm a bit gutted about that. I did replace it with, you know, the drinks tray decoration object we got from Eco Lifestyle, so it's still kind of like a similar idea, like similar kind of concept, but I did really initially like the little idea of having like a little coffee machine in the waiting room and also in some of the hallways. But unfortunately, when it came around to actually playtesting and taking the screenshots, for some reason it did delete it. You can add it back, but then I found that when my sim would like go home and then come back for the next day of playtesting, it would again be deleted. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to replace it with something else. But then as you would have seen, I just did the little kind of like interrogation room, as well as the room that overlooks that room. I don't know what it's called, so I'm going to call it the overlooking room. Again, the same kind of thing with like the initial like receptionist desk area. I had so much fun putting out all these different like crime scene photos, case files, all these different like evidence samples all into that room, because the thing is, I did place some down into this reception area, but I didn't want to place too many down because I'm thinking, okay, well, if there's a literal crime and you've got all these different evidence samples, they're not probably going to be at the receptionist front desk. So I did try and hold myself back in not placing too many of them down into the initial like kind of like entrance into the build, but into that little kind of like overlooking room, I placed down so many. I really did just pull out pretty much everything that I could find from the get to work debug menu, because again, I've never used them before. Perfect opportunity. How many times am I going to be able to use crime scene photos into a build? Probably not that many. And so I placed down a bunch of them in there. Also placed down some like little filing cabinets. There's also kind of like a little, I want to say computer desk area, but it's not actually a computer desk. It's this little side table, which is actually the same side table that I've placed into this hallway over here. Pretty much, I wanted there to be like a small little ledge where I imagined that detectives would have all their paperwork out, have all like their pens and paper and stuff, and maybe have like a little laptop or something. And so I placed a little side table down. I then found two like little swivelly chairs, you know what you can like roll around on, placed them in front of it to make it look like a desk. And then again, the same concept with the coffee machine. I placed the laptop down onto a desk, and then I sized the desk down really small and then tried to merge into the wall, and then I layered leveled the laptop down into kind of like the side table to make it look like it was sitting on the side table. And again, unfortunately, when it came around to playtesting and my sim would exit the lot and then come back on, it would just disappear, and it was really annoying. And so I decided to replace that with, I think, just some paperwork instead. But the idea was there. I love the idea of it, but unfortunately you have to have a laptop on like a counter or something for it to not delete, apparently, as I've now since discovered. But as well as that, as you would have quickly just seen, I did like a little holding cell room. So I imagine that maybe if a suspect has been arrested, or maybe they've been arrested and they've been held for questioning, they will go into like a little holding cell room. There's just kind of like some benches in there. Honestly, not too much in there, because realistically, what would be in that kind of room? Literally nothing, just brick wall. And then on the opposite side of that, that ends up being the 2 cells. In the cells themselves, honestly, there is not really too much in there, but I really tried to hold back with like all the different decorations, because I feel you're not going to have pictures on the wall, you're not going to have like posters. And I was more so thinking, okay, I can maybe possibly decorate one cell to be maybe for an inmate that's been in this cell for a while, maybe have like a few different like photos on the wall and stuff like that. But then realistically in gameplay, they kind of like switch out the criminals every so often, or at least I find whenever I go to the police station, they kind of like switch out the sims that are in themselves. And so I just decided to keep them quite basic, quite simple, so then all different kind of sims can just go in there. It's not like decorated to be for one sim. I did try and make a reference in one of the prison cells, which I don't want to say the name of the TV show, but it begins with P and the second word begins with B. It's one of my favourite shows. I've watched it so many times, but it's basically a show. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a really good show if you haven't watched it. I'm not even telling you what it's called, but I feel like most people would know what I'm talking about. Anyway, there is a TV show which is quite old now, and they basically managed to break out, and the way that they break out is they make a hole in the back of the toilet. And I tried to make a reference to that in this build, which I don't know if that's a bit of a spoiler or not, but then again, this TV show is so old. I'm pretty sure it came out in like 2007 or something ridiculous like that, so I feel like it's probably not a spoiler. But you know, I did try and make a reference to this popular TV show. What I basically did is I found this wall decal that's kind of like a hole, and I basically just placed it behind the toilet, but I placed it in an area so I feel like you can't even see it, but it's just, for me, I know that it's there, and it's kind of like a nice little nod to this TV show. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to tell you the name, even though it is so old and I feel like everyone's seen it, but I hate like TV shows and films being spoiled for myself, and just in case it might be on someone's watch list, I'm not going to tell you the name of it. But to be honest, I feel like that is such a given, because I feel like that happens in like the first 5 episodes or something. But either way, it's the idea that I don't want to spoil it for you. Besides the point, getting back to talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I just finished up that little chemistry lab. Basically, when your sims are like detectives, they'll often go out and maybe arrest some people, maybe take them in for questioning, and oftentimes they'll have to get fingerprints taken from like the suspects, and sometimes you have to get your sims to go and use them little like chemical analyzers. And so I wanted there to be like a little chemistry lab within this build. I wanted it to be really close to the offices as well, because in gameplay I was thinking, okay, or maybe someone's just used that chemical analyzer, they need to place down something onto the crime map, which you can see that I've now moved on into kind of like this office area. This is kind of like where the majority of the officers and all the detectives will be in like the day-to-day 9 to 5. And in this little area there's this crime map. Now in gameplay, when your sims are maybe trying to solve a case, they might take like witness reports, or they might travel to like the crime location, and all these little like bits and pieces that your sims will do, eventually they'll have to come back to this crime map and then kind of like place it down. I wanted the little science lab to be really close to the crime map, because then that way, say for example your sims are using the chemical analyzer, they've just discovered like some groundbreaking evidence, they need to go pop it onto the crime map. I wanted it to be like a walking distance, because going back to what I said at the start of the video, I really tried to focus on making this build as easy as I could possible for gameplay. Because the thing is, when your sims are in active careers, it's not like a thing where you can go to like the place that they work and then stay there for as long as you want. I think the acting career, you might be able to do that, but I know with like the hospital career, the detective career and the science career, you normally go to work, I think it starts like 9 o'clock in the morning, and then you have the option to go home at, I think it's 5 p.m, or if you click on it you can then extend it, so then you're like staying late at work. Basically, you're on a time frame when you're at work. So if you want your sim to be a detective and you want them to do really well in their career, you know, like they're exceeding in everything that they're doing, you want them to level up really quickly, you're gonna want to like complete all the different tasks within the day as quickly as possible. And so with that like idea in my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, I don't want everything to be so far apart from one another, because your sims, even though it might not seem like a big thing, but getting your sim to walk from like the top floor of a building all the way down to like the ground floor of the building eats into their time. time. And so yeah, I placed down the chemistry lab kind of like next to this little like detective room office area, which I've now moved on to. So in here it's kind of like I want to say like a hub for like the detective career, because I feel like whenever I get my Sims to play in the detective career, they're more so sitting at a desk, you know, browsing the police database or solving like previous crimes, or just going for like the history and all the bits and bobs that they do. I feel like the majority of the work that I personally find my Sims do in the detective career happens to be on the computer. And so I feel like this is maybe like the main station where if you do decide that you want to download this build, your Sims would probably be. But this is where all the detectives, all the like fellow co-workers are going to spend their 9 to 5 like day-to-day business. In here there is a ton of different desks. There's also like some filing cabinets. In the corner I placed down like a little mini fridge and then a coffee machine, which there wasn't originally. Going back to like the original build, like I said, the original police station build that the Sims team gave us when the Get to Work expansion pack first came out, it really wasn't even that bad. But I feel like since then we've had so many packs that have come out which there's like perfect items that would have fitted into a police station build, but because they wasn't out and they came with different DLCs, they weren't able to add them in. So I feel like them kind of things I tried to add into this build, if that makes any sense. So like one example is vending machines. I don't think we really had any vending machines like the ones that we've got from Snowy Escape, where your Sims can purchase like hot drinks and maybe like a sandwich and stuff. We didn't really have them when the police station first came out, when the Get to Work expansion pack came out. And so I tried to add them into this build. There's also no like mini fridges with the Get to Work expansion pack, and so again I added them into the build. I feel like there's smaller things that we got from other packs that just merged really well into this build, and so I tried to add them where I felt like it like suited or it was necessary. But yeah, there was a little mini fridge with a little coffee station. I also used them little coffee like clutter decorations that we got from the Everyday Clutter Kit on top of it to make it look like all of the police team have maybe like had a cup of coffee, no one's been bothered to like pop up to the staff room and like wash them up or something. There's also kind of like a little locker changing area, or I say changing area, it's more so I imagine where your Sims will keep like their backpacks or maybe like a spare pair of shoes or something, kind of like as you walk into like the office doors. I was originally thinking that maybe it'll be somewhere where they would change into their clothes, but I mean, to be honest, it's probably not the most private area, so maybe they like bring their gym clothes, and then if they want to work out after work, they can like keep them in that little locker and then pop upstairs and then use like the police station gym, if you want to call it that. But then also in that room as well, it's kind of like a little waiting area to go into the chief's office, which I've now moved on to. Now, again, going back to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I was really trying to think about all the different TV shows and films that I've seen like when I was building this, but mostly for Brooklyn Nine-Nine, for like this little like chief station head of police office room kind of thing, I was thinking back to in the show there's kind of like a similar layout in terms of like the office where like the main detectives or like the main officers would work. It's kind of like a little side room which has all these windows and has some doors, and it goes into like the main office for like the head of the department. I wanted to do a similar thing in this build. What I did is I used these windows and the doors that we got from the Get to Work expansion pack. I'm pretty sure they're meant to be used in like a retail lot, but I mean it worked out perfectly for like this little office space. But in here there is a separate desk, a computer, a little bit more of a fancier chair, because I wanted to show some sort of authority rather than just being a separate desk from the rest of it. And so in this room as well, I tried to place down like awards onto the walls and also like some plaques and a few different like trophies and bits and bobs and just things that I feel like if you were the chief of police you might potentially have in this room. I did place down a globe into the corner, and when I actually came in and I started playtesting this build, I didn't really like the look of the globe, and so I did decide to change it. You will see that in the screenshots. I decided to change it to, I think, 2 little filing cabinets, because there wasn't really too many in that room. There is also a bookcase in that room, which I'm only pointing out because I've realised there's only one bookcase, surprisingly, in this whole entire build, and it ends up being in like the little police chief station room. But that's not really something that you need for gameplay. That's just something that if your Sims like fun need is going down at work, maybe get them to read a book or something and they'll be good. But besides the point, anyway, moving on. As you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs portion of the build, and now I'm going around and doing kind of like the staff room, a bit of a cafeteria area. Originally I was thinking, you know, the high school years expansion pack that I was about to say recently got, but it's not really that recent, is it? But you know the high school years expansion pack, and we've got like the cafeteria bar where you can hire a vendor or hire like a cafeteria person to come and like serve your Sims food. I was debating putting one of them in here, but then I thought for gameplay wise, will it be a bit of a would it be a bit annoying if every single time your Sims come to work they have to hire a vendor? Because I'm not sure if the vendor will automatically come or not. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to make it into quite a stereotypical staff room. So in here we have some kitchen counters, there is like a microwave, there is also a little coffee station. Now we do have this fridge, which is from the Get to Work expansion pack, but I noticed that this was in the original police station build, and I'm pretty sure your Sims have to have this on the police station somewhere. I don't know why, but I feel like that is a thing. They need to have this certain object, and so just for gameplay wise, and so you didn't run into any problems, I decided to place it down into this staff room. There is also a bunch of different like armchairs and sofas. There is also another vending machine, and then also kind of like a little table and chairs in the corner. But now, as you can see, I'm now moving on into the next room, which is kind of like the evidence room. Now, this room isn't exactly necessary. This is not one of the lot requirements. Your Sims don't need to have an evidence room within the police station build whatsoever. This is just something that I thought would be quite fun to fill out the space, and so I use these kind of like shelving units that we got from the Get to Work expansion pack. I think I've used these a few times, but I've also used them in like garages or, you know, places like that. And so getting to use them in this build and try and clutter it up with all these different like boxes of what looks to be like paperwork, and I end up placing down, I know I placed down a briefcase that's like got all this money piling out of it, and then there's also another briefcase or like another bag that's like a similar concept. I also placed down loads of different like case files, and how many times have I said case file in this voiceover, but there is a lot of them in this build because I was really trying to make the most of this opportunity to use them within the build, because I don't feel like I'm really going to use case files that much in like my everyday builds and probably in future builds. This is probably one of the few times that I'm going to be able to actually use them, and so I thought I'd take advantage of it. But in here I also placed down like a filing cabinet. I placed down some like equipment that I feel like would be used in a crime. So there is a baseball bat, there is also some like basketballs, there is also some like, I think there's a bowling ball as well. It's in this kind of like cluster of all these different sporting equipment that we got from base game. I tried to place it kind of like under the shelving unit. I also placed down some like computer equipment. Maybe someone's PC has been confiscated and it's being kept in this room. Again, there are some more lockers in here, which maybe aren't lockers that your Sims are going to necessarily use. Maybe they're just lockers that hold bits and pieces. Maybe instead of having like loads of different shelves, there is a few different shelves for like certain bits of paperwork, and then maybe like old case files that have kind of like gone cold. Maybe they're stored in like the lockers or something, which, by the way, if not aware, your Sims will actually interact with the lockers. Your Sims can change their outfits in them. So you know how like we've got chest of drawers or wardrobes? They're basically the exact same thing. But yeah, I just basically finished that room up. I added a ton of different cameras in there as well. I did try my best to try and remind myself every so often when I was doing a room that I felt like it was necessary to add the cameras in. You might have noticed that I might have missed out like 1 or 2 rooms throughout the build where I didn't add any security cameras in, but when I was coming in and I was taking the screenshots, that is something that I noticed. And so yeah, pretty much every single room within this whole entire building, apart from like the toilets or like the bathroom, whatever the class it as, they all have cameras in, because it's a police station. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a highly monitored building. They're gonna have a lot of different security cameras, so they can monitor every single type of Sim that's come in and out of the building, and you know, they just have knowledge of who it's in this little police station. But besides the point, as you can see, moving on, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the conference room. Again, this is not necessary for gameplay. This is just something that I thought would be quite fun to do. Maybe there is like this really big case and everyone's trying to solve it together, and instead of sitting downstairs in like the little officey bit, they want to have like a big table where they can all maybe they order like takeout or something, and they all come and sit in this room. Maybe they all decide to stay late and they all try and solve this case. I want you to add in it, you know, the crime map that I placed downstairs. I want you to have that into this room to kind of give that idea, but then I didn't want to confuse the game, because I feel like it would be a really bad gameplay idea if I was to have 2 of them crime maps within the build. It might just confuse the game. And so what I did instead is I did the next best thing, and I got a whiteboard. So you know the high school years expansion pack, it comes with a whiteboard that your Sims will use when they go to school or like be taught on when they're at school. I basically used the whiteboard and pretended that maybe that's the crime map, or instead of having the crime map, they just write it on like a marker, and then they maybe like stick like post-it notes or something onto it. I just thought it was a really cool idea, and yeah, I just didn't want to confuse the game with adding in like another crime map. But in that room, there ends up being like some filing cabinets, a really big table. The way that I did the table So I've got 2 3 tile long tables and then basically merged them in together and then added a ton of different chairs around them. We don't really have any big table, like big tables I'm talking in the game. And so if you ever do want to have like a really massive like meeting table, conference room table, you can just merge in loads of different tables. And to be honest, you can literally make a table as big as what you want, because if you was to use a swatch where you can't really tell that it's 2 separate things, you can have like a never ending table, if you want to put it that way. But on the table itself, I just cluttered it up with loads of different like bits and pieces, like files and like the odd laptop here and there, the odd like coffee mug and stuff. In the corner as well, I placed down this kind of like little trolley, and it's got this TV on it. And to be honest, I don't even know if this will be in a conference room. It was more so something to fill out the empty space. Didn't want to add in too many plants into this lot, and so I thought a trolley with like a nice little TV would be like maybe like a nice little decoration, maybe like a nice little finishing touch into the room. It did remind me of like school when I placed that down, because that was something that at like this time of year, you know, in the festive season in school, I feel like when the trolley used to be out, you knew it was time to start watching a Christmas film or something. But yeah, anyway, besides the point, as you can see, I just quickly did the little gym room. So there, I say little, it's actually massive. So in there is a bunch of different treadmills. There is also some boxing bags, the gym equipment machine, which I feel like I'll never learn the name of it. It's the one where your Sims can do like leg raises and then like arm workouts. And it's like a multi-purpose gym machine. There is some of them in there as well. Because if you're not aware, when your Sims are in their detective career, at some point, I'm not sure if it's early on or it might be when you get more into the career itself, but your Sims have to be quite active, because I'm assuming maybe like chase criminals or something like that, and so they do have to get quite a high fitness skill. And so maybe on your Sims lunch break they can pop into the gym, have a little workout, and then maybe they can pop into this room, which is the room that I've now moved on to, which is kind of like a shower room, pretty much just a big space where your Sims can come in, and if they're a bit smelly they can wash themselves. It's pretty much just a shower room and then a ton of different lockers as well. But apart from that, I'm going to go around the build, do one final little hallway, and then that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.